We're live.
Live.
Oh Lord. Then so is this the link in the chat is the one we can share, or is there a different
one? It looks like, let me put a new one here, but I think this is it. So whatever I just put there.
Okay.
I'm gonna put mine on Facebook right now.
Okay. Well, the one you just sent. Where'd it go?
Got to keep an eye out for our first people.
I'm gonna actually put my thing on mute so I'm not bothering you.
It's me. Don't pay attention. It's me. I clicked the link. Oop. Can't spell.
Hey, real quick, what are y'all's Twitter handles so I can put it on here?
Mine is RaVynn Camilla, RaVynn, Camilla, Kamka.
All right. Joy?
Smile, it's Joy.
Smile is Joy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back on mute.
Hi, Genghis. We should have talked about emotional support animals.
We should have, but they're expensive.
Yeah, they are really expensive. But we can talk about that on like managing your symptoms slide.
Yeah. If people decide to join, fingers crossed. I'm just nervous people actually come.
They're gonna come. It's like it's not 6 yet. There's one person watching, and I think it's me.
How can you see who's watching?
I clicked on the YouTube link.
Oh, probably you.
Hi, Genghis. I need you to not though, because I'm about to do a nope. I'm about to do a thing. I know. Okay. I'm about to do a thing. Hello, anybody there? Five people are watching, Joy.
Jonathan's watching.
Five
Awesome.
people are watching, Joy.
Yay! All right, can you guys hear us?
Can you give us some indication that you can hear us?
Awesome. Yay! Awesome. All right, can you guys hear us? All right, you ready, RaVynn?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, well, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Joy Melody Woods. I'm a grad student at the University of Iowa, and I'm excited to talk to you guys tonight.
Hi, I'm RaVynn Stringfield. I'm a graduate student in American Studies, Ph.D. student at the College of William & Mary, and I'm also excited to talk to you about mental health today.
All right. So what do we say when we mean mental health? A lot of us hear different things about, we hear that it's like kind of like, I guess, a trigger term, or not a trigger term. What's a good word I'm looking for? Like a popular term right now. So it kind of encompasses a lot of things. So some of the things we mentioned, depression, which is something that I suffer from, and anxiety, and then RaVynn.
I am diagnosed with bipolar 2, so that's something that I deal with in my grad school life, ups and downs, so depression and hypomanic episodes.
And then there's OCD. There is an array of diagnoses, but we're not here to give the specifics of each one. We're just here to talk to you guys about what it means to how to manage your symptoms if you were diagnosed with a mental health issue.
And just to note that we can talk very briefly about some of the prevalent symptoms of depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, just because that's what you're familiar with. But it is helpful for you to not self-diagnose. If you see some similarities between our symptoms and things that you're going through, it's best to go get a professional opinion on what you might be suffering from. So Joy, do you want to talk a little bit about what depression looks like for you?
So depression shows itself different in everyone. And so for me, it shows itself in not just a little bit of irritability, but also I get withdrawn and I don't like to do things, and I kind of lose interest in things that I like to do, and I just kind of lay around, and it's physically impossible for me to like get up and figure out what to do. Even though like I might have a list of things to do, or things are going well for me outside, you know, possible for me to like get up and figure out what to do. And so, yeah, that's what kind of looks like for me, and my body aches, and I'm always tired if I'm in a depressive episode. And then anxiety for me, I've been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. It looks kind of like, I don't know, just the fact that I can't turn my thoughts off and they're always racing. Yeah. And what about you?
So my depression looks similar. So the bipolar 2 is a little different from bipolar 1, which is what you kind of see in movies and TV shows when people say they have bipolar disorder. They're extreme lows and that are also offset by extreme highs. Most people with bipolar disorder spend most of their time in the depressive state, and they only come into hypomanic or manic states every so often. And so hypomanic is a smaller or a less big version of a manic episode, which can be characterized by extreme highs, extremely elevated moods, overconfidence, extreme spending, and also irritability, irritability and anger is something that can also be a part of a manic episode. For me, I tend to be on the angry side. I tend to be really, really overconfident in my work, and I know that I can get it done, and I really hate when people interrupt me. So they last about 3 or 4 days for me. I'm super productive during that time. And so it looks like I've read like 3 or 4 books during a weekend. And it can be really debilitating because you don't want to be around anyone. It feels a lot like you're driving a race car and have the wheels are falling off when you're hypomanic. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but thank you. Thank you for explaining your symptoms for that and kind of giving people a little bit. So I know that for words like depression, anxiety, and especially bipolar, they're kind of thrown around lightly. To use like, oh, the weather is bipolar, or I'm depressed because you're just sad about something. So we hope that this gives you a little bit of clarity to go and look further into what those words mean and diagnoses mean. So next. So what should you do to manage all of this? All these things are going on. You got to be a good grad student. You got to get your work done. You might just be diagnosed. You might have had a diagnosis. So what can you do? So we're here to help you with that. And so, yeah.
So the first thing you should do is get help. If you feel that you have some symptoms that haven't gone away or that are worrying you or your friends or your family, the first thing you should do is seek out counseling help. If you want, there's usually counseling services that are free through your university. If you're not interested in university counseling, you can also go out into the community, and both of those options we'll talk about in a little bit more detail later.
Yes, sorry. And then if it's appropriate, you can talk to your advisor about your health, and especially if you don't know what's going on, and they might, if they're a good advisor and there's someone that support you and you feel comfortable, they might be able to help guide you in a place to look, or just be another person. And if you do have a formal diagnosis, accommodations are available and you should utilize them. Don't let that be stigmatizing to you, and we can get into that a little further. So the next slide, we're going to talk about what free counseling looks like at the university. Okay. So campus counseling, what to expect. Don't get discouraged because sometimes there can be long wait lists because students do know it's free. Here at the University of Iowa, you can get an immediate 30-minute session if you call right at 8. Sometimes you can get in. It's like an emergency work through problem solving. But oftentimes what I do when I first got here was I made an appointment, even though I might not keep it, because I knew that the wait list was long. So if I could come in right in August, or like even in the summer, if I was counting as a student, to make a phone call and they could tell me like, oh, we don't have appointments until October, which seems like a long time, and it is, just to know that you have that opportunity to see a counselor, even if by the time it arrives until October, you don't utilize that. But it is free. And if you are uncomfortable going to something attached to university, that's where the community can come in.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, oh, okay.
Oh no, we can go next. I can add it. So if you're not comfortable going to campus counseling, you can always look around in the community. And I know there are some, if you're like a Black woman and you're interested in having a Black therapist, there is therapyforblackgirls.com is a great resource to check out to find a therapist that looks like you. I really have had a lot of success transferring from doing counseling with my school to doing counseling in the community. The counselor that I have now has a therapy dog, and she is fantastic. Joy and I both have therapy animals, which we can talk a little bit about later if people are interested in them. Emotional support animals, at least for me, I should say. Just be aware that one of the main differences between doing off-campus counseling is that you do have to pay for them. You usually have to provide your own transportation to get there. So it can be a little bit more difficult depending on what your transportation situation looks like at school. But a lot of places do take insurance if you're still, if you're young enough that you have insurance still with your family, or if you have other types of insurance as well through your school. And also make sure to ask them if they have a sliding scale for payment options, because they know that grad students can't always pay.
Yes, and when it comes to your insurance, read your benefits. I know that some universities offer 2 types of insurance for their students, like the basic type, that's cheaper, and then cheaper per month out of your stipend check, or if you don't have an assistantship, cheaper for you to pay out of pocket, or there's a more expensive one. And even though it might be a little bit more expensive, you might have cover more things. And so make sure you look into that. And it can be kind of daunting to look through all of what your benefits offer. And if you ever need any help with that, we're here to help. But that's something that I do, because it might be a little bit more expensive for me now. But if I do decide, and I have used off-campus therapy as well as a psychiatrist, I don't have a copay or anything. So it kind of balances itself out. And I have 50 visits a year through my insurance, or 51, which is one for every week.
Nice. Okay, so do we want to talk about our next point?
Yeah, and this is all you. You love routines and bullet journaling. So
I do love routines. So what else can you do to help manage your mental health? You can get organized, you can establish routines, and you can really just be there for yourself doing things like this. And so what I like to do is I like to track my moods. I like to track my symptoms. I like to track my sleep. I like to track what I'm eating and how much water I'm intaking. So like I do this in a bullet journal. I can actually show you at the end what my bullet journal looks like, but essentially what that does for me is it gives me a way to reflect on how I've been feeling and why I've been feeling that way. So I have a record of what's been going on in my life that may be making me go into a mood episode. So I can look back and say, oh, maybe this wasn't a mood episode. Maybe I just wasn't eating enough. Or I can go back and say, okay, everything is fine. I was eating, I was drinking, I was sleeping. This is a mood episode, and this is something that I need help with. And so it's good to be able to track yourself so that you can, you can tell what your episodes look like. And it's also really helpful for therapy. It's helpful for when you're going into your appointment, because the first thing they're going to ask you is, okay, have you been sleeping? How have you been sleeping? What's your appetite been like? And you have a record from the last week or the last month or however long you've been keeping track of it. In terms of establishing a routine, I really think that getting sleep is really important. I know that a lot of people like to pull their all-nighters and they like to work under pressure, but like in grad school, it's not going to cut it anymore. You've got to get your 8 hours of rest, or however many hours it takes you to be well rested when you get up in the morning. And so I, for example, really like to make sure I'm asleep around 10:30 or 11, and I get up around 7, and I make sure that I have a morning routine. I make my cup of coffee. I do my gratitude log and my journal. That's something else that I can talk about later. But in order to, that's a mindfulness technique, which I'm going to mention. But I keep a track of the days, what I've been grateful for during the last day. It helps me keep a positive attitude and reflect. Sorry, my dog is chewing on a bottle. Genghis. Sorry. Okay. So if you don't bullet journal, you can look at other types of planning. You can do a happy journal. You can do a, what are they called? Oh, passion planners are really great. I love passion planners. You can just plain journal, whatever you feel like doing. I think helping journals help you get organized, help you stay accountable for yourself. Especially too, if you write things down, you're going to be more accountable for them. And also schedule your time wisely in terms of getting enough sleep, in terms of making sure that you have an established morning routine when you wake up in the morning. Make sure that you're scheduling time not only for your work, breaking down your work, but make sure you're scheduling time for yourself. Because you may have a whole week go by and you haven't taken enough time to like just chilling on Netflix and hang out with your friends and like talk, like go on a walk, a really long walk with your dog. So if you're the type of person that gets really caught up in the everyday, in your everyday life, make sure that you schedule time for yourself as well. Anything you want to add?
One more thing that's kind of on here that we didn't touch on. It's just, if you're a family person, definitely schedule when you talk to them so you get in a routine of that. I'm not really like, I love my family, but I also know that sometimes there are triggers for me as well. So if I know I'm only talking to them when I have time or when I need to, that's helpful. So like if you get in the routine, they can learn to respect your boundaries and get your work done. So you can get your work done and you can establish boundaries with them so they understand like what your program actually is. This is a whole nother level from undergrad. And when you go into your grad school with that, it can kind of relieve a little pressure from you. From having that like responsibility or obligation to have to talk to your family every day if that's something you wanted. That's something you do, but you might need that time for yourself. And never feel guilty for that. And make sure, like she said, you find something that works for you as far as scheduling. So that's all I'd like to add.
I just wanted to say too, I'm on the opposite spectrum of the family situation. I live an hour away from home and I really lean into my family. They've been really helpful for me in my grad school experience. And so I go home just about every weekend. And I know that some people have things that they want to say to me about going home and like not being at school, but it's what I need for my mental health. My family gets me through. They like, it's really refreshing and rewarding to be around people who don't want to know what my next project is. They just want to know if I've been eating. And so I really love my family for kind of helping me take care of the essentials. My schoolmates here, they take care of my mind and my parents take care of my spirit. So,
nice.
Right.
Number 3. So get your diet under control. This is not shaming you because you might have just ate a whole bag of chips, because I might have done that a few days ago myself. Or today, no judgments. Or, you like to drink, or you drink soda more than you do water. This is just a point that we're making, that sometimes what you do eat can affect your mood. And also when you get to grad school, you've heard of the freshman 15, the grad school 50 is so real and disrespectful. So when you keep in mind, and this is something you could also track, like RaVynn was talking about tracking her water intake with her bullet journal. It is very important. It's something that I found through Googling and reading different blogs and listening to my therapist of like, I try to incorporate different veggies and different fruits, even if it's not like every meal. I try to like, strawberries are my favorite fruit, so I try to have strawberries. Or like, I like carrots and I like a little ranch. So like mixing, something that might not be as, ranch isn't the best, but I'm eating my carrots, or like getting your nuts and your trail mix and something like that, because it can really boost your mood and can boost your metabolism. And one way I make sure I do that is I try to like keep unhealthy snacks out of the house, except for like one. So like I don't have cookies, really. I don't have like a lot of sweets, and if I do have sweets, I have to make them. So that's more work for me. So just being really cognizant of what you do put in your body and what it can do towards your mood is really essential, and especially water intake, because sometimes your headaches can make you upset, which can trigger you to be depressed, which can trigger you not to want to do anything, and you're just dehydrated. And it's not really depression, you're just dehydrated. So keeping all those things in mind. Yeah. What would you like to add?
I really like meal prepping during final season. I don't do it during the semester. I kind of just do whatever during the rest of the semester. But during finals, I know I'm going to be too stressed out to make myself food. And so what I do is on Sunday is I make in bulk, like particularly during the winter, I'll make like a beef, like a hot roast in the slow cooker, and that'll feed me pretty much all week. Or I'll make a soup, or I will make fish for the entire week. That way I'm not tempted to like go get cookout because I already have something at home. And then I keep like sandwich meat and things like that for lunchtime, and I just kind of portion everything out during the day, because I get so focused on the work that unless I already have it in the house, I'm not going to eat. So that's something to keep in mind too. You should try you should try meal prepping if that's something that you're into.
Yeah. But full disclosure, I've tried it. It's not for everyone because sometimes I can't eat the same thing every time.
I'm so type A. Like I like rigid structure. So like I could totally eat the same thing all week and it wouldn't bother me.
No, it's terrible. But I will say for healthy food, it is a little bit more. Yeah, obviously, that's the thing we hear all the time. It's more expensive to buy a bunch of veggies and stuff all the time when you can just go, to McDonald's or get you something fast, some frozen dinners. And so if you do like frozen dinners, look at the healthy choice. Look at your what is it, Lean Cuisines, and they have really good meals. Now they have something called Devour, which is like the male, air quotes, right, version of like a healthy dinner. They're really good. So no gender roles there. And also like look at your Aldi, look at your local grocery store that's not a huge chain. And get fresh lunch meat if possible, and get fresh meat if possible if you have a kitchen. And I freeze it. Like the other day, the grocery store next to me ran a sale for chicken thighs for $1.99 a pound. Fresh. I was like, all right, I'll take 5 pounds. And you save them in your freezer so that way I always have chicken, or I always have salmon, or I always have turkey, so I'm not like eating a bunch of red meat or things like that, and staying on budget. So look for the sales, which is a whole nother topic in itself. But it is possible on a grad school budget to eat a little bit more veggies than you think. Ready?
Yes. Sorry. I'll be right back. My dog is getting into something.
Oh, well, okay. So this one's lean into your support system. And RaVynn kind of already talked about how she leans into her family and she's close to her family, even proximity wise. And so if your family's not your system, like for me, like I said, I love my family, but that's not who I lean on. Know who's in your circle, and if you have to get rid of people, that's fine, because in this journey, in this next step of your life, you need people who you can lean on in times that are hard, when you do want to give up, when you aren't able to climb out of your shell, so to speak. But also know that leaning into your support system, that your friends aren't your therapist. So be very kind of careful in how you navigate that. And let them know, if you feel comfortable, disclose to them your mental health status of like, this is where I am. So they know what to do and how to respond when something might be going on.
Yes. So one of the things that's been really helpful for me, 2 things I'll mention. The first thing I'll mention is that I have had a group of people from my undergraduate that have been friends for me via text. One of them's in law school, one of them just graduated from undergrad, and the other one's in the workforce. She's actually she's watching right now. So like, hey, Alexis. But they have been super helpful to me in terms of what I've been being supportive of me and what I've been doing in grad school. And one of them, the one in law school, understands my grad school struggles enough, but it's not so similar that we're competing. So it's been really helpful to have her in my corner. And the second thing that I'll say is Twitter saves everything. I love Twitter. I love my Twitter friends. Joy is now my Twitter friend. We met via Twitter. If you don't have a support system at your school, just look on Twitter, hashtag trying to grad, hashtag what else?
Black grad life.
Yes.
Hashtag, student affairs, or side assistant, first gen docs, like all these. I think that's the ones I have off the top of my head.
Hashtag Black and Hooded.
Yeah, I forgot. How could I forget Anthony?
Yeah. No.
He's probably watching like, what?
But by doing these hashtags when you are tweeting about grad school, and by participating in Twitter chats, is how I've met a lot of people on Twitter. And I have a good support system of people who are looking out for me, who are reading my work, who are invested in my journey. So if you can't have a physical presence, always look towards the virtual, because we're pretty cool over here in the virtual world.
Right. And I just saw someone in the comments on YouTube say group me. So if you're into group me, that can also be a good support group. And start your own group me from some of the people you might be in contact with via Twitter. Because, you know, sometimes these group me's are like 300-400 people for Black grads. So we are out here. So that if that's a little overwhelming for you, I'm available to talk, and you can add me to a group me if you want. You can.
I am too.
So yeah, I mean, I think your support system is one of the biggest things. And thankfully I met my partner here, and he's a PhD student. So we're both kind of, I'm a master's student, he's a PhD student. So we're kind of in this together. And since he's gotten his master's, I've run into a hiccup. He's like, all right, well, you know, this is just part of the struggle. We're going to have to do this, this, and this. And so that's been really helpful as well.
Great. All right. So what are some other things that you can do? You can manage your symptoms. And what are some things that you can do to manage? You've done everything right. You've been exercising, you've been eating properly, you've been leaning into your support system, and you still have a depressive episode, or you're hypomanic, or your OCD is flaring up. Some of the things that I really like doing, if you can't get in immediately to a counseling session at your school or with your off-campus therapist, a lot of times your counseling centers at school will also offer groups. They'll offer like support groups that you can go to, or creative arts groups, yoga, mindfulness training. And I will speak to having done one of those groups. I did a mindfulness training last February, and it changed my life. I am a total mindfulness nut now. Like, I love it. It's something that I practice every day in my life, which I will talk about in a second. The other thing that I like to do to help manage my symptoms, and this works particularly well with depressive episodes and with anxiousness, is mindfulness techniques. And it really just helps to, you might have heard it, it's kind of a buzzword, but it really does work. It helps to center you. It helps to bring your mind back to a present moment, and be a little less all over the place. I think it helps really ground you. And one of the things, and I'll just mention one of the things that I do for mindfulness, is breathing techniques, just your basic in and out. Like that, for a few minutes. You can do it at your desk. You can do it while you're in class. It'll help center you. I also do meditation beads, and I've also do other types of exercises, which if people are interested in, I'm happy to give you an exercise after we finish this presentation. And you could also create a wellness box, so the first time I ever made a wellness box, I was in undergrad and I was severely depressed. And what I did was I just found a box, and my friends helped me, and we filled it with things that made me smile. So we put a coloring book in there. We put some crayons in there. We put this little statue of an elephant that I love in there, a plastic sunflower, a list of things that I liked about myself, my favorite movie, which is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, whatever. People can have their own opinions about movies, but like, that is the greatest movie of all time. Things that make me smile, candles, and it's a thing that you can make for yourself to bring out when you're not feeling too great or when you're really anxious. That way you don't have to start thinking about, what can I do to make myself feel better? You already have a box full of things that you know will help. And if you make a variety, you know that if you have a variety of things to work with, you can always just pick and choose what you do, because sometimes not everything's going to work every time. And that's something to keep in mind. Like, if you love baking and you're having a depressive episode, baking is not always going to make you feel better. Sometimes you need to go swimming or go kayaking or do something else. But it's nice to have an arsenal of tools at your disposal to help you get through your episodes.
I was shaking my head no at the baking, because that's what, then I love to bake, then I gain the weight, and then I'm like, more, it's just no, don't always. avoid baking and cooking if you're in a depressive episode, because you'll eat it all and then you'll be more depressed. For me, I don't technically have a wellness box, but I love Golden Girls. And so I know anytime, like, I've seen every episode. I can quote you I know it backwards and forwards, have every episode on DVD. And so I kind of usually watch it on Hulu now, or like watch something that's happy. And that's usually Golden Girls for me. Mm-hmm. And I too have participated in an anxiety type, mindfulness type class for a little bit. It just didn't end up working with my class schedule, but definitely, like she said, looking, Iowa has surviving grad school as a Black student. So they have like a Black student support group here. Yeah, it's, for me, I also go, if I know I'm like getting stressed out and if it's not rainy outside, I'll just take my dog for a walk down the block and back. And that kind of centers me. I also, for me, I always keep a sheet of notebook paper or a sheet of paper next to my desk. If I'm doing something and if I have a thought, I'll write it down so I don't focus on it while I'm doing something else. And then if something really angers me, I just journal it right away, even if it's like 2-3 sentences, and then I get it off my chest. So those are some ways I manage my symptoms so I don't sit in it. And if I need to talk about it, I email my therapist and try to get on their calendar, and they're like, all right, let's get an appointment.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Oh,
just kidding. We have a bonus point. It's okay not to be okay. It is perfectly okay to have bad days. Not every day is going to be sunny. And you just have to get yourself organized so that you don't have to necessarily work through those hard moments. You can... it is perfectly okay to feel however you want to feel. And don't let anyone make you feel bad about how you're feeling, because you can't control that.
Right. Yeah. Cut people. It's hard. I will say it's hard to sit in things. And one thing my therapist told me, which I even tweeted, and someone's like, oh, that's really good. And I was like, I wish I could take credit for it. Was that it's okay that you can have 2 feelings at a time, because I was struggling with feeling hurt about something, but also understanding why the person did it, and I couldn't reconcile those 2 things. And so they were like, it is okay to have 2 opposing feelings, because that's natural and that's human, and you can sit with that and be okay. And I think that also goes in with, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be depressed sometimes. It is normal. It's diagnosable. It's not a fake thing. It's real. And so, and talk to people who will understand. And if people don't understand, it's not your job to make them understand. And it's not your job. You can tell them the points of depression if you would like to, and what facts are out there. But if they don't get it, then that might not be the best person to talk to about it at the time. Yes. So, yeah, I think there was a question real fast here, RaVynn.
Okay.
It was, Kat asked in the chat, any tips for finding a therapist for a new grad student?
So I would say if you're interested, I would start with counseling centers on campus, just because they're free. You know that you can get in. It might be a wait for it, but you know that they will try to see you. There normally is an intake process, so you have to do a preliminary call so they make a general assessment about your health before they try to schedule you in. In terms of finding a therapist off campus, I have always used one thing. Even if you don't want to use the counseling center at school, they still have a person that does referrals in the counseling center. So if you want to do off campus, I would go to the counseling center and ask them for whoever does referrals in that counseling center to see who they have in the community. And you can tell them, I'm looking for an African-American therapist or a woman therapist, or someone that has a therapy animal, or someone that that specifically does bipolar or whatever you're looking for. So it might be easier to start there than it is to research people online.
Yeah, it also depends on where you are. So for me, I'm in Iowa City, Iowa. Limited, um, limited places I can go. So like, I wasn't overwhelmed in searching for like other places to go. If that makes sense if that makes sense, Kat, because there wasn't that many resources. Me Googling a place to go was like, oh, here's 5 other places. Let's look into these. Yeah, I think your first place should be the university if you feel comfortable. And you can even walk in and say, you know, hey, I'm not trying to get an appointment here. I was just wondering if you have suggestions of outside places to go. And they should, and they usually do. And if they don't, someone in the university does. You can try your Student Disability Services office because depression, anxiety, bipolar aren't officially disabilities that you can get accommodations for. So they might have places and suggestions to go. Excuse me. If you have cultural resources on your campus, like a cultural house or a cultural center, they might have resources as well. And if you have the extra money or you're able to budget, Talkspace seems to be a really good place. They have different plans. I have a friend who just started, and she was like, I'll tell you how it is, because she got the one where you can text and video chat as much as you want. So that seems to be a really good opportunity and another way to get involved with a counselor if you aren't able to find one that you like or aren't able to get in automatically.
So we have another, not necessarily a question, but it's from Black in Grad School. Yes, we'd love to see another mindfulness exercise. So I can do a really quick one or just show you how you would do it. So this one is 5 things you see, 5 things you hear, 5 things you feel. And so what you would do is you take a moment, assess how stressed out you are, give it a number on a scale of 1 to 10. Once you have your number, the first thing you do is you find 5 things in the room to look at and just note them. So I see a chair, I see a blanket, I see a lamp, I see a bookshelf, and I see my phone. Then you do 5 things you hear. And you don't have to say it out loud, but you can just note 5 things you hear. And then you do 5 things that you feel in your body. So this is the moment to note that you have a crick in your neck, or you feel your jeans swiping against your legs, or you feel your the heels of your feet hitting the floor. So you would do that, and then you go to 4 things. 4 things you see, 4 things you hear, 4 things you feel. Then you do 3, then you do 2, and then you do 1. I like to do this when I'm walking outside because it makes me more aware of my surroundings when I'm walking outside. It makes me more present in my walk. And I'm a lot calmer once I've finished the walk because you've noticed that like whatever you were stressed out about has been driven completely out of your mind because you're too busy paying attention to the things that you see, that you hear, and that you feel around you.
There was a comment in here saying that some schools have free Headspace subscriptions as well for mindfulness. So thanks for that, RaVynn, as well as that extra tip. I'm going to look into that. That would be pretty dope if I allowed that. I've heard great things. Any other questions before we give you our contact information, or any other thoughts or ideas you'd like us to touch on, our stories, experiences you would like to hear on how we got diagnosed, anything of that nature? I'm not seeing anything.
Nope.
Okay. So here is my contact. I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. So it's Smile, It's Joy. Pretty clever, I know. My email is morningjoypodcast@gmail.com because season 2 of my podcast is coming up in July. And then my website is withoutaspace.com, where I talk about my journey as a Black graduate student out of PWI with depression, anxiety, and also learning disabilities.
And my contact information, my Twitter and Instagram is @RaVynn Camilla, RaVynn. Camilla. You can see it on the screen. And if you want to email me, if you have some questions that you wanted to answer, you wanted me to answer, you can email me at rkstringfield@email.wm.edu. But I will say that if you DM me on Twitter, you're probably going to get a response faster. That's just the way that I am. And I also have a website that you should check out, Black Girl Does Grad School. I'm wearing my shirt right now. Can you see it? Yeah, Black Girl Does Grad School, where I detail my experiences as a Black female graduate student. And I blog every Sunday, except during the summers. But for the last 2 years, I've done that every Sunday, and I love it. And I have guest posters that talk about their experiences. Joy has been on my blog. So if you want to check that out, I would love to see you guys become subscribers.
Yeah, subscribe to my site too.
Yes.
I should have had my mug for my podcast, like self-pubbing. But we thank you guys so much for registering for this, and we hope it was helpful. And same thing RaVynn said, if you have any questions, email me. Most likely we'll probably respond quicker for a DM on Twitter. But I am relatively quick with my email as well. And anything is not off limits if you want to ask me. I'm pretty much an open book. I talk about everything on my blog. So let us know. And I hope you were helpful.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for joining, you guys. We really had fun tonight.
All right. You guys have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.